allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Before we get into the regular agenda items, I would just like to start by saying, as I did a couple weeks ago, this is not a public hearing on a specific issue. This is a regular meeting of the Allegany Town Board. We have regular agenda items to address. As with the last meeting, we've chosen to add the situation on the West Branch 4 Mile area to the agenda. We will open up for discussion on new questions, new concerns to be addressed. This is not going to be a rehash of things that were discussed 2 weeks ago. We do have some representatives here. We do not have anybody, to my knowledge. I was told there would be no one here from DEC tonight. They said they have no new information, so would not be sending a representative. From Dimes, I know we have Matt back there. Michelle from Dimes Energy. Is Tim here? Tim Zerfus, thank you. Okay, Tim, nice to meet you. I'm Kathy. Tim Zerfus is from the Cat County Health Department, water specialist. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. So now I would like to say that as a town, as a municipality, as a board, we have no new information from any front. I have reached out to Dimes Energy. I also reached out to our state representatives, George Borrello, our new state senator, Joe Giglio. I actually did get a response from George Borrello's office, a response to my communication, and as a result, he did reach out to DEC Region 9. So I know that at least one resident has been contacted by Region 9 DEC with regard to this. So I've gone on too long. We need to get into our regular agenda items, first of which is to accept the minutes from our November 26th meeting submitted by Daryl. Did everybody have an opportunity to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Got the.
Yep.
Aye.
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 Aye, thank you. All right, so the first item of new business would be to open up to any new questions or concerns from residents regarding the situation with the drilling operation on 4 Mile and West Branch. Is there anybody who would like to speak, ask a question, make a comment?
I will.
And thank you, Judy.
Okay.
I didn't say this, but when you do when you do want to make a comment or ask a question, please stand and state your name, so we have it for the record. Thank you.
I'm Judy Capozzi, and I had to write this down because I always get a little nervous when I'm talking. But I just want to say, look at all of us. We're here. A few months ago, all we were worried about was getting our lawn mowed, or what we were going to do in the garden. And now we've turned in, we have a house explosion, and we have a lot of safety concerns that we are living with now. And I want to say thank you, Kathy, for your outreach to everyone that you've written letters to. It's very helpful for you to share that with Dimes and with DEC, requesting water testing. And I think that is the most important thing that we have to think about, is our water safety. And there are no guarantees now. We just don't know what is gonna happen to our water supply. It's going to hang over us forever. Devalues our property, for one thing, but also just the safety issue of, you know, what we're going to have in our water every day. But I was reading that, it to me is a very important thing. I'm concerned about fracking. Fracking disturbs the ground, and even though they say it's controlled, I mean, you can't control water completely. You never know where it's gonna go. I read on a DEC site, this is an official site of theirs, it said, unplugged wells can serve as a conduit for oil, gas, and other fluids. It's also a potential route for methane to escape into the atmosphere. So that is a really concern to me. And there are many unplugged wells in our area. How are we gonna know if the fracking continues, where all that's going? When's it going to, you know, enter another formation? We don't know that. So that is a real concern. And I feel like everyone on the West Branch 4 Mile area that's affected by this should have a baseline water testing so we know what we're dealing with and we can be aware of what's going on. That's a small thing to ask for what we've given up. So.
Thank you, Judy, I agree with you, and in my letter to Joe Giglio and George
Pardon
Borello, in my letter to Joe Giglio and George Borello, I made specific, I had a wish list, and one of the things was for DEC, and unfortunately we don't have a representative from DEC here tonight, for them to require drillers to do baseline water well testing in the vicinity so that there is a record for comparison. So hopefully, you know, that, and I urge all of you to continue to communicate with the DEC, express your concerns. Anyone else? Gail?
Thank you, Gail Hammond. Those of you who know me know that the reason I'm back here is that my youngest daughter, who lives up Smith Hollow, which is loaded with oil wells, and their property is a major gas well, and they're surrounded. Their house is 170 years old, and but anyway, their little child, who is 10 now, and it has always been in the back of my mind because of the gas wells and so on, or oil wells, is she's 10, but she has nursing day and night. She has constant seizures. She is blind. There's no genetic reason for this. They have not been able to, and I'm not saying that there's a cause-effect here, but it certainly makes you, from what you read and so on, makes you wonder if there isn't something here. She cannot walk, she cannot talk. She has a little use of her left hand. And this is a tragedy. My house now, which would be a lovely family home for someone up there, I wouldn't recommend them or this house to someone unless we know more about what is happening here. So I don't mean to be, but the environment is, you know, it's going down, folks. And I'm very worried about what is happening, you know, regionally and worldwide. And if it isn't impacting you, it doesn't exist. But I say that the warning is out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Anyone else? Comments? Any new questions?
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's new because I wasn't here last time. But,
Your name?
Athena Godet Calaveras, I live in the town of Allegany, on the 5 Mile. And this is my community, and so I'm concerned. And my question is that while they're investigating if there's any relationship between the oil, the drilling and the problems that have happened and the problems with water, shouldn't there be, until we get a result, a moratorium on more drilling? It seems to me that it's just waiting for the next thing to happen.
And, thank you. And the drilling is all regulated by DEC. The town does not do any permitting.
So DEC can stop it, only DEC can stop it? Is that correct?
Yeah, the town itself, the municipality doesn't really have any jurisdiction, so, yes.
Yeah, I'm Betty Darcy, I live in Allegany too. Just a question, where's the oil going? Why are we,
That's a good question, and we just happen to have a representative from Dimes Energy who could probably answer that. We have two, actually, Matt or Michelle.
Hi, probably not the most liked person in this room right now. My name is Michel Piet, I'm the president of Dimes Energy, and while we come from different areas,
I'm so sorry.
I drove 10 hours to be with you here from up north. Like to think that we're not all that different, because when my spouse found out about when I shared with her Mr. Volz's property, you know, both of our eyes obviously got very, very big. We're human beings first and we run a business second. And so we actually, or initially, we wanted to reach out and do something for the family just out of compassion, like we've done on a few other occasions. But because of the delicate nature of the situation, we want you to know that we, you know, thank goodness nobody was in the house. Thank God nobody was in the house. We, from our experience, have seen this happen in other industries as well, where it's an unfortunate, it's a unfortunate catastrophe, which oftentimes is also unrelated coincidence. The companies that we've consulted with, and we have, when you're saying new information, on Thursday of this week, the Erie Insurance Company of Mr. Volz is going to be there with investigators at the property, accompanied by investigators from our liability insurance company, to make sure everything is done in due process. And you know, when we first came down to this community, we didn't come down here with the idea of reinventing the wheel. You know, this town and many like it in this area were built on derricks and oil fields. When you go onto Union Street and the mosaic of the town painting on the corner there, there's an oil well there. And when we came down here, we didn't bring our French sauce from up north thinking that we were going to be doing things differently. We hired and we sought out the best people in the industry. Dallas Morris, we're here tonight, 80 years in the industry, 4th generation. Whether it be Neely Air Notching, whether it be Sean Woodring and Matt LeBlanc, former supervisor of Shell, and have done a wireline engineer of 5,000 wells. We pride ourselves on thinking we actually do it better than it's been done for the several decades. 160,000 wells have been drilled in New York and Pennsylvania. 160,000. This is the first time something like this happens, and we believe wholeheartedly this is a very unfortunate catastrophe, but also an unrelated coincidence. And in this country and many others, you know, you're innocent until proven otherwise, and we are very confident that that's what's actually going to end up being the end result. In the meantime, but to answer your concerns with regards to water, we had reached out. We've already contacted Kellner Well Services, and we've mandated them to go and do 5 houses other than the Department of Health to go and do water testing. We are very open to the idea of doing baseline water testing from the beginning to show if or any discrepancy after the drilling. We have plugged, talking about unplugged wells, there are a lot of unplugged wells that were there long before us. And we have spent over $300,000 plugging 40 wells in the area, old abandoned wells. We have since June of this year, I believe, spent $3,000 to $4,000 per month on that street sweeper, which I understand oftentimes causes more dust then good, but in collaboration with Dallas Morris this week, we got a new Timco street cleaner, which is not just sweeping, but also cleaning the roads. Hopefully it doesn't make it too slippery now that we're cleaning the road. But just so that you understand, we have a genuine, it pains me to hear you, because I feel the concern. If I can leave you with another metaphor or example, I have a friend of mine who made a very good living selling weight reduction protein, and you have 50 people on the weight reduction protein. It's 50 people, 50,000 people, 100,000 people. Some people are going to pass away from natural causes, not because they were on the weight loss protein. In the oil industry, we drill wells and Mr. Pulse is not one of those candidates, but you have some houses explode for other reasons, and it has nothing to do with the drilling activity that's going on in that area. So to answer your question as to where the oil goes, it's actually sold to American Refining Group, which has been in business since 1881, so they're the oldest ongoing refinery in the world, and they're the ones that purchase our oil.
Bradford.
In Bradford, Pennsylvania.
I
got a couple of questions. I just want to know, an hour and 17 minutes when I left the house, there was no smell, no nothing. And all of a sudden, my house blows up. And 3 days before that, my water was fine. We had it checked. And it started turning milky and black. I had Killers come up, he took samples and everything. And I had to call him back and tell him, well, save the fill, you saved me money. The house blew up. I just want to know, and if you guys watched Channel 4 News Friday night at 6, they had a big representative from you guys, and he said it is possible, they can't rule it out, that it could have been from it. And from what I heard, 10 minutes before my house blew, they fracked the well across the street. I'm not blaming, I just want to know answers. It could very well be just some freak accident. I can accept that. But all these people here, they go home, their house blows up, somebody gets killed. I gotta live with it because I haven't said nothing. And you people did bring the sweeper out. He did a fantastic job on the road. Congratulations. I'm easy to get along with, but doggone it, I want answers. Because now I go home, you've seen the site in my house. The 36 years of memorabilia and stuff laying there. What do you do? I mean, I got the good Lord on my side. I'm going to get by it. But somebody else's house goes, That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. And it's kind of not really answering your question, but I think we're all gonna have to wait for the results of the investigation, unfortunately.
I have a
Yeah.
question. My name is Nancy Scheidman. Michelle, you said that they were gonna do 5 wells as far as testing the water. And then is everybody on the road eventually gonna have a baseline water test on the 4 Mile and the West Branch?
Well, from what we have been told, the department has already done 5, so we're trying to get 5 different addresses, not to duplicate. And then once we get the results from that, because Kellner also has comparables with regards to other locations, other areas, with regards to what is standard or habitual contaminants in the water. And so then we would make the decision from that moment forward.
So whatever the results are from
conclusive.
that, then it will decide whether they're gonna go up
Correct.
the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Two questions, actually.
Your name, please?
Walter Hollenby.
Thank you.
First of all, is there a time frame? Is there a formula for the longer we wait to get the testing done to even start? He hasn't even been able to clean up anything yet. Waiting and waiting for testing. How long do we wait before all of a sudden there's no more gas there to test? How long before it dissipates into the air and we're not gonna prove that that was the problem? That's the first question. The second question is, how low do the taxes go now? Because the property value sure went down.
I agree with that.
both good questions, and I don't have an answer for you, I'm afraid. We have, the town doesn't have anything to do with the testing.
No, but the town gets voted in there by us,
Yes.
and we're very concerned, so the town needs to stick by us.
And we're doing our best.
Mm.
And as far
You
as.
have done very well. I've read the articles in the paper, but we
As
need
far as-
answers.
And we're.
Well, we need pressure for answers then.
We're doing our best to find some answers for you. As far as
This man,
property values, unfortunately, it's going to be, it's gonna be time is going to be the answer to that. So,
that's what I need to know, is how much time before there's nothing there to test. Like you said, this house filled up in an hour and 15 minutes, with enough gas to blow that house to smithereens. More than most bombs you see go off in buildings. You see fronts of buildings get blown off, you don't see the whole house laying all over fields. That was a lot of gas in a hurry. Huge difference.
does anybody here have a better answer for Mr. Hollenbeek?
Well, Mr. Helvey, we don't determine the speed at which we wanted to get in there right away. We weren't allowed to get onto that property. That's Mr. Boltz's insurance company that regulates the speed at which that investigation takes place.
My son was the one who was representative as an insurance agent before his insurance got there, so I'm well aware of all of that.
Okay. We would have done whatever we could to go sooner. We will be there on Thursday with the insurance company.
No, they get a call and notify me? Cause I haven't heard nothing about it.
Your insurance company investigator will be there on Thursday.
Okay, alright. The only thing I know for sure is when this is all settled, the only thing that's gonna rise is my premiums per year. That's guaranteed, I already got a note, the only thing I ever heard come back to me so far, your premiums are gonna go up.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. That is what it is.
Insult to injury. Yes, sir.
My name is Hugh Paul. Are you aware of all the steel lines that are running around? God only knows where they're at. I know I've got one that runs right down one of the creeks in my back property. I know John Mosier runs across them when you're cleaning ditches, because there's one that's got a valve on the end of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
How many of these things are out there? And now you've got a pipe that can actually carry this gas from God only knows where to this point. What are we gonna do about those? I've been told, don't touch it, leave it alone. This is 28 years ago. That supposedly somebody comes out and checks these things. I've been there 28 years, I've never seen anybody check that line that's running right down the creek on my property, from one side of my property to the other side of the property. And it's not just my property.
So these lines are old,
old transport line.
okay.
What I was told one time was,
The old wells.
when they used to pump up in there years ago, they used to collect the oil down on the 4 Mile or down there someplace, and that's what these lines were for. All the oil run down there, they picked it up there. But now that, those lines are all running through our property, which is a great access for your gas to come to our houses.
Now, in a conference call that I had a couple of weeks ago with Health Department, Emergency Services, DEC, Chris Miller from DEC mentioned an orphan well fund that New York State DEC has. So once again, I'm gonna point you in the direction of the DEC to ask that specific question. It could be that it's something, we know, yet, that this area has a lot of old wells, and it could be that it's something.
Well, I'm not talking a small 3/4 inch pipe, I'm talking
Right.
it's 2.5 inch.
Right, so it could be that it's something, it's from the old wells, that
Well,
have
I
been
know it's from
abandoned.
the old wells, but
and-
now they're putting in new ones. Now, this is a perfect access for that gas to come up that pipe and go wherever it wants to go. Nobody's safe with it.
Those lines aren't deep enough.
Is there a possibility that the new drilling that these old pipes at ground level could be an issue with the new drilling.
So we practice 4.5, 5 acre spacing, and none of our infrastructure actually, it happens once in a while that on our own lease that one well may communicate to another, which is a rare occurrence, and we know that that's within 400 feet. It does not stretch any further than that. We've never experienced that in all of the drilling that we've done. So, and actually in this instance, Mr. Volz's property is about between a third of a mile to half a mile from one of our closest wells. So I understand that there was also a, from what I understand, I'm not a forensic investigator, but from what I understand, there's also an old unplugged well on the property.
Yes, sir.
And so that, I can't go any further with respect to that, but we don't communicate out at length with other wells of other properties.
Just ask, how do you know it's
Had
happening?
easy access through a pipe.
How do you know it's happening?
Could I,
around
could
here?
I name
Can we
things,
direct,
sir?
can we
Yeah.
direct questions to the board, not to, among yourselves? After the meeting, you're welcome to do so.
Great.
Please, let's try to direct them to the board.
So my name's William Colosimo. My question is drilling and fracking still happening? And then if it is, then again, what is our risk level, since we don't actually know what caused the explosion yet? There is fracking going on in the ground. It can open up fissures and channels. Gas can travel through those, and it can affect our property as we go. My second question or comment is, the noise from the generators, the operation, is constant, it's always loud, it's not quiet or peaceful anymore, and it, from what I understand from the last time, it never will be. The generator is really loud, I hear it all the time, I can't escape it. So there's a property value issue, and that's my third point. Property values, property taxes, those things, property value is gonna go down. How do we even get out of this at this point? It's, again, unforeseen that 150-something wells were coming in. We've had no warning, so there's no opportunity for us at this point. We're looking at big losses at this, if I am. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tim.
Does anybody have any other comments before I start?
I'm Jared Capper, and I live up on Boulder Ridge. I've been up there for 10 years, and that drainage ditch has always been a big concern of mine. Every winter, there's always somebody in that ditch. 2 cars every year, and with these bigger trucks coming in and out, I pull right over and wait for them to go by. It'd be awesome to get that filled in. I know that wouldn't cost that much money.
Any thoughts on that, John?
We could look into it.
Look into it, it's been years. How many people do you want to go into that
There
ditch?
could be a reason that hasn't been filled in.
Like what?
They look into it. I'll look into it. let you
No.
know.
You getting nasty?
Just so that we look into it.
Right, that's what he said, and that's what he'll do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
Kathleen introduced me earlier. My name is Tim Zerfus. I'm with the Cattaraugus County Department of Health. My supervisor, Eric Boulders, was here last week. He provided everybody that came with some individual water supply fact sheets, as well as a handout that addressed most people's concerns with gas in the water wells and whatnot. As you heard from several people who spoke tonight, the Cattaraugus County Department of Health is sampling 5 wells in the near vicinity of Mr. Volz's home, and that will happen later this week. We have yet to schedule exact times, but we need to get all the owners together basically and do this. We are not in charge of the investigation, but we've been working diligently with the DEC and the Cattaraugus County Emergency Services and offering any help we can. And we've gotten laboratory bottles from our state laboratory that usually does our public water supply samples for the regulated facilities. And they're gonna be doing any kind of sampling that they can through their lab, as well as some other samples. I know everybody has concerns about gas, and the only thing that I wanted to mention to people is dissolved gas in our well water is actually quite common in this area, okay? So to say that there is no dissolved gas in your water is probably not likely. It's probably likely that you do have a small amount of dissolved gas in the water, But when it gets very high, obviously there can be an explosion hazard if it's in a confined space, or you could get nauseous, or it could replace the oxygen in your blood. So the obvious thing would be, if you're gonna get your water tested, you should test for dissolved gas, and get it quantified, and that you should ensure that your water well is vented to the atmosphere and not in a confined space in your home or connected to your home directly. Basically, new water wells are constructed to regulations that are in the state sanitary code. So no water well driller can drill a well today that isn't vented to the atmosphere directly. So if you have an old well, you want to make sure that it is outside, or if it's not outside, it is vented to the atmosphere. As far as dissolved gas in your water, like I said before, it would have to be very high in order for it to accumulate in a confined space, like in a shower or anything like that. It would actually be, say, like an explosion hazard. If you have questions about your water supply or the construction of your well, you're welcome to call our department. There was handouts that Eric brought last time, okay, and they had our name and our contact information. They also had some sampling recommendations from the New York State Department of Health. Now, this is a standard sheet, and most of these things come right off of the EPA website, so you can find those on the EPA website. And they do give recommendations for what you should be sampling for if nearby activities include oil or gas drilling. And most of those things are basically things that you would see in the brine water or in deep aquifers, okay? So they wouldn't naturally occur in elevated levels in the shallow aquifers. So that would be like the bare minimum of the baseline sampling. Now, baseline sampling can get really complicated and can get really costly. So you have to draw a line somewhere as to how much you're going to do as far as your baseline sampling. But there are several different recommendations out there from private labs, like the one that was on the handout from Brockway in Pennsylvania. They offer a pre-drill package, okay? So it's kind of like a package of normal things that people get tested, that if there's gonna be any kind of effect from nearby drilling activities, they'll usually show up and change. And you can go way further. If you want to go and get more sampling, we would just recommend that you consult with a private environmental services provider, and they'll set you up with a lab and give you recommendations, and they'll explain what you're sampling for and sort of help you decide what you should sample for. Again, that would be like a private environmental, analyst or something like that. Yes.
Yes. It does not seem that any resident should have to pay for those tests. I mean, I know they're expensive. This was no cause of, nothing that anyone has done that lives on that road. And it just doesn't seem right that they should have the great expense of trying to find out if their water's safe.
I understand your concern, and everyone's concerned with that. And you guys would have to take that up with, people from the oil drilling companies, or, it's not required that they test wells within the vicinity. Sometimes they do that as far as people that sign leases with them that are concerned about the water, because they have some sort of controlling factor there. But not to sound insensitive, but everyone in this room needs to understand that if you're a private well owner, it is your responsibility to test your water and make sure it's safe. There could be something in your water that isn't related to drilling and is naturally occurring around here that could be at an elevated level above the maximum contaminant level. And one of those things is arsenic. There's a lot of arsenic in the groundwater around here, okay? And, if we don't test our wells for arsenic, we'll never know if they are occurring in high levels that are detrimental to our health. So private well owners in the whole county